Hey everyone.
What's going on, guys? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Happy one day left until election day.
I'm sorry for laughing. The way you said that, it seemed like it's over.
Oh, no, happy one day left. It's funny that you say that because my mom sent me a photo of her standing online in South Florida for early voting. So 2 weeks before
Oh,
election.
weeks ago she did that. Yeah.
Yeah, she sent this to me and there was a long line. And then my uncle chipped in and chimed in the group text to say, oh, over 2 million people have already voted in the state of Georgia. And I was like,
What? Wow.
wow.
Eager beaver, guys.
So there's been a lot of early voting. There's been a lot of early voting.
If you've already voted, throw it in the chat for us. Let us know in the
Yes.
comments
Let us,
below if you guys have.
we're not asking who you voted for. We just want to know if you already
Please, yes. We don't need
exercised
none of that
your right
drama.
to vote. Did you exercise your right to vote? Did you do it early? Awesome. I sure did.
Absolutely.
I did. I'm one of those people. I'll go along with those people in the chat. All right. Look, if this is the first time that you've been with us here on Say That channel, welcome to Mondays.
Yeah.
Mondays are our Monday rundown shows where Winston and I get to talk about all the things that we don't normally talk about on our Wednesday shows, which are Wednesdays devoted towards business and entrepreneurship. So Mondays, we get to talk about all things. And we started off by talking about the fact that today is the day before election day. And so we thought, what wouldn't be a better idea than to talk about something like democracy?
Say
So
that.
today's topic question is, can democracy be truly fair?
Hmm.
Hmm, can it? Can it though? So, those of you who've watched us before, you know that we like to talk to other content creators or look to other thought leaders on different topics. Today isn't any different. We are going to get into to hear some from
Some
some other.
content. Nice.
But before we do that, what's your hot take on this? Can democracy be truly fair?
Well, it's funny. I know backstage we were talking just even of what the idea. I know you had mentioned some remarks Trump had made a couple of weeks back that you said that I guess called even had you thinking, what exactly is a democracy? And the answer for me is no, given what I think how you explained it. Well, you know what? No, hold on. Sorry. I'm gonna say fear, yes, if the idea is just a majority rules. And if in an ideal society where everyone within that nation is given an opportunity to have a say in who represents them, then yes, I believe in that system, it can absolutely, again, be fair.
Right.
And that's without getting into the minutia of, well, everyone doesn't have access. I'm not talking, I'm just saying in an idyllic situation where everyone who is of the ability or age, whatever that nation decides, or the requirements to have a voice. If in that idyllic space everyone's able to exercise that voice and chooses to, then obviously I think yes, then that in that situation it would be fair because the majority would get to decide on different topics. They would get to decide on different policies. See, and actually no, see that's what's so weird to me. I, I keep going back to the system I think we have in place where it's okay to vote a person in, but then once that person gets in, I feel like what you made a decision on in the past, you don't get to make new decisions moving forward, specifically if policies do come up. Because once a person gets in, I feel like they can go and backtrack on a few things that they said because they may have only been saying things to get to where they are, to get to the position that they're in.
I think it
And
goes back to the word that you used initially, which is ideally. In the ideal situation, by definition, in the way in which it was originally designed, the intent was that if everybody gets a say and right, and then with the
mhm.
idea that the person that you're voting to represent you then actually does what they say that they were going to do in order for
Oh
them
yeah,
to.
so you're following it all the way down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So then yeah, if in that same scenario, then yes, I do believe oh see, but no, this is where I mean that what if that person does get in and the policies that they planned to have a certain stance on that changes for reasons that as an individual voter, I may not have understanding about. I feel like those are some of the things that, they call it playing politics. I feel
Mhm.
like there are a lot of political things that come up that deviate from the system or cause the type of maybe distrust in the system that is there.
Yeah. So, okay. So, in the ideal way, even in the ideal, what you're suggesting is still possible. I could have
Yes.
the person representing me, let's say, is in Congress, and they said, hey, look, I believe what you believe in terms of XYZ policy, vote for me, and I will speak your
Yep.
voice. I
Follow
will
the
say
suit.
that.
Yep.
But that now they're in a larger body, which is Congress, and they still are saying the same things I wanted them to say. They're still very much in favor of the policies that I am in favor for, which is why I even voted for them. Why I voted for them in the
That's what's up. Way to go, Apple.
process. And yet, because they're a part of a larger body, which is now Congress, what if they are not the majority, though? And
Well
so
said. Yes.
they certainly, I voted for them. They still went out and spoke to and voted for in Congress for what I wanted them to vote for, but they weren't in the majority, and so
The
it didn't.
majority of this larger body, exactly.
Yes.
And
And
so
so
to that,
now
there
do
we
we
go.
blame that person? And we're like, oh, well, you said you were going to get it done, but like you
Or
obviously couldn't get it done. And I
or
don't
do we really
necessarily.
believe that's fair? That's the thing. That's what tripped me up initially. That's what had me even rethink my it was, what is fair to me? And that's where I went back to the whole majority thing. But to your point, the majority could be different depending on the level that we are addressing. So yeah, you summed it up exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
The majority
So,
is what makes a difference.
and then that's the whole point, right? Like the founding fathers built this whole system of checks and balances. So no one
No
thing,
one, yep,
yeah,
would
could like,
kind
right?
of curtail the whole system. And now, is this what we believe fair
Right.
looks like? Something
Yeah.
built how many years ago? Do you
The
know offhand?
Constitution was 1776.
Well done. There we go, guys.
Sorry, that was the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights, and then the Constitution was a little bit after that. So let's say 1780. So the Bill of Rights was during the War for Independence, right? So here's our Bill of Rights. England,
If
King, we need
if
like
you guys right now out there like me, my Hamilton mind is turning. I'm trying to remember a Hamilton
yes,
song to see if I can just answer this.
yes.
Like I know
I
he
just
told me this.
I was gonna say I was like I just did it a little bit faster than you because that's exactly what we're doing.
Okay.
It was the Bill of Rights, 1776. There was, "Hey King, we want yes," you
There
know,
we go. Yeah,
the
yeah.
whole thing, and then
I'm
he's
like, I
like,
know I have the
"Sure,
answer for
you
this
want to
somewhere
leave?
in my
Go ahead
soul.
and leave." And then like around, let's call it 1780. It might have been 1779, but like let's just call it 1780. Now we had a constitution and we had a brand new country.
So in my mind, this is a question of, does democracy need an overhaul? Because I believe the foundational ideas obviously are a different or better system than one that I believe was being experienced by the people who obviously came here and made the decision to separate themselves. And I just wonder, it's probably time for that system, right, to get an overhaul. What that looks like, I'm not a political science major, so I could not.
This is really great. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Please.
I think it does go back to the idea of what is a democracy. Ultimately, I do want to make very, very plain is that the idea, the bottom line, the most basic forms of democracy are ones in which the people get to just vote for someone to represent them in
Mhm.
government, in some form of governments. It has Greek roots, and that is ultimately like the basics. Now, how does that play out then? Like, what is that person who is now representing you able to do? I think that's when we can start getting into differences of different types of democracies. But
Mm.
the most fundamental part is that I and you, everyone who's watching this, gets to vote for someone to represent us and our voice and our desires and our needs in the larger governmental body.
Yeah, there are definitely aspects of this. Because then even as you said that, I'm thinking what my needs are today and 4 years from now is such a fascinating thing to even understand.
I
And then
mean, this is
depending on
why
what office you're voting for.
well, this is why
Yeah.
there are term limits, right? we give this guy a chance and see what they can do for 2 years, 4 years. And then
good point.
they did or didn't do it. Or, you know what, my needs change now. So let me find the person who can recognize my current needs. It's the
I
whole
know
point.
somebody out there is like, or the Supreme Court, where it's life. Like, yeah, we know. All right, so who do we have today? Oh, sorry.
No, we're good. So today we are actually going to go to our friends over in the TEDx space or TED Ed space. Lots of people watch TED Talks.
Yeah,
and so
great.
The TED community has decided to now make educational pieces to help
videos,
us better understand things. So I'm really excited to hear what they've got to say on this.
All right, let's do it.
Imagine we want to build a new spaceport at one of 4 recently settled Martian bases and are holding a vote to determine its location. Of the 100 colonists on Mars, 42 live on West Base, 26 on North Base, 15 on South Base, and 17 on East Base. For our purposes, let's assume that everyone prefers the spaceport to be as close to their base as possible and will vote accordingly. What is the fairest way to conduct that vote? The most straightforward solution would be to just let each individual cast a single ballot and choose the location with the most votes. This is known as plurality voting, or first past the post. In this case, West Base wins easily, since it has more residents than any other. And yet, most colonists would consider this the worst result, given how far it is from everyone else. So, is plurality vote really the fairest method? What if we tried a system like instant runoff voting, which accounts for the full range of people's preferences rather than just their top choices? Here's how it would work. First, voters rank each of the options from 1 to 4, and we compare their top picks. South receives the fewest votes for first place, so it's eliminated. Its 15 votes get allocated to those voters' second choice, East Base, giving it a total of 32. We then compare top preferences and cut the last place option again. This time, North Base is eliminated. Its residents' second choice would have been South Base, but since that's already gone, the votes go to their third choice. That gives East 58 votes over West's 42, making it the winner. But this doesn't seem fair either. Not only did East start out in second to last place, but a majority ranked it among their 2 least preferred options. Instead of using rankings, we could try voting in multiple rounds, with the top 2 winners proceeding to a separate runoff. Normally, this would mean West and North winning the first round, and North winning the second. But the residents of East Base realize that while they don't have the votes to win, they can still skew the results in their favor. In the first round, they vote for South Base instead of their own, successfully keeping North from advancing. Thanks to this tactical voting by East Base residents, South wins the second round easily, despite being the least populated. Can a system be called fair and good if it incentivizes lying about your preferences? Maybe what we need to do is let voters express a preference in every possible head-to-head matchup. This is known as the Condorcet method. Consider one matchup, West versus North. All 100 colonists vote on their preference between the two, so that's West's 42 versus the 58 from North, South, and East, who would all prefer North. Now, do the same for the other 5 matchups. The victor will be whichever base wins the most times. Here, North wins 3 and South wins 2. These are indeed the 2 most central locations, and North has the advantage of not being anyone's least preferred choice. So, does that make the Condorcet method an ideal voting system in general? Not necessarily. Consider an election with 3 candidates. If voters prefer A over B and B over C, but prefer C over A, this method fails to select a winner. Over the decades, researchers and statisticians have come up with dozens of intricate ways of conducting and counting votes. and some have even been put into practice. But whichever one you choose, it's possible to imagine it delivering an unfair result. It turns out that our intuitive concept of fairness actually contains a number of assumptions that may contradict each other. It doesn't seem fair for some voters to have more influence than others, but nor does it seem fair to simply ignore minority preferences or encourage people to game the system. In fact, mathematical proofs have shown that for any election with more than two options, it's impossible to design a voting system that doesn't violate at least some theoretically desirable criteria.
Mhm.
So while we often think of democracy as a simple matter of counting votes, it's also worth considering who benefits from the different ways of counting them.
Woo.
The United States' use of the Electoral College to elect presidents instead of the popular vote has become increasingly contentious in recent years. How exactly does this system work? And is it fair or antiquated? Find out here.
This was super interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
I raise your hand, or at least tell us in the comments. Raise your hand in the comments if you learned about multiple ways of voting that you just did not know before. Right? And like, can't wait to see all the hand raises in the comment section. Fascinating. And just the idea of like, to their point, what's really fair. And I love the scenario that they gave. It really, if I mean, for what it's worth, Winston and I are in the United States, and that is kind of similar to what the US is, that like the population in California, that entire state.
Yeah, that's so interesting. The numbers. I didn't even consider that
right?
before we started.
And then we have the way that we dealt with it is that in Congress, you have the Senate and the House of Representatives. And in the Senate, you only get 2 people for every state. Doesn't matter what the population is. But in the House of Representatives, as with the name sounds, they represent the population. And so you have that many more Congress people who are representatives in California than you would, let's say, in Rhode Island.
Yeah,
So,
which is why for here, when people are getting like up in arms when they're talking about districts being restructured and things being moved and certain places being added to one county instead of another, you could understand why people are up in arms.
yeah.
So they see their numbers dwindling, literally.
Right. And so they won't be, now they're going to be the minority. And then they just said that nobody thinks that ignoring the minority voice is a good idea either.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not fair. Exactly. It's not fair.
Yeah, that idea of fairness really came up with that. This was amazing.
Yeah.
Actually.
Thanks, Ted.
Yeah, seriously.
And the TEDx
really good
community.
stuff.
That was really good. Look, let us know what your thoughts, like, if you haven't already exercised your right to vote here in the United States, please go ahead and do so. If you registered for early, go ahead and get that done. If you're going to do it on election day, tell us what the line was like. We want to hear in the comments what the line was like. Maybe you can have a discussion with somebody online about you watching this video. That'd be pretty cool.
Love it.
Well, until we see you next week, as always, remember that you deserve the good life. Say that.
Say that. Have a good one, guys. Be well.